This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
Precisely 1:15. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. News edited by Romesh Piris and read by Sharifa Tahir. Headlines. Curfew imposed at 12 noon in the Colombo Administrative District. The Galle-faced protesters decide to hand over occupied government buildings. The UN Secretary-General appeals all party leaders to compromise to end political impasse. The chief prelates of the 3 Buddhist chapters urge all party leaders to convene parliament and establish structured, orderly governance. The Chief of Defence Staff urges public to help maintain law and order. The party leaders call for Prime Minister's immediate resignation. Litro says gas distribution in Colombo and outskirts to commence today. A hotline to lodge complaints related to trains. International news, Ukrainian grain exports may be a step closer to being restored. Sports, cricket. Mehdi and Nasum trample West Indies as Bangladesh sealed the series. Local news in detail. The Government Information Department announced curfew has been imposed in the Colombo Administrative District with effect from 12 noon today until 5 a.m. tomorrow the 15th. It said Acting President and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe had imposed the curfew under the provisions of the Public Security Ordinance. The Galle-faced protesters have decided to hand over the government buildings they have occupied, including the President's House, Presidential Secretariat and Prime Minister's Office, aiming to restore peace in the country. The protesters had reached this decision following the announcement made by the Speaker of Parliament. Addressing a press briefing held at the protest grounds today, Father Jivanta Piri stated that the protesters would vacate the occupied government buildings and hand them over to the authorities. Meanwhile, the Bar Association of Sri Lanka appealed to the people of Sri Lanka, especially those engaged in protest, to remain calm and to leave room for the peaceful transition of power, which the political leaders of this country have promised. Secretary-General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, has urged the party leaders to embrace the spirit of compromise for a peaceful resolution to the current political impasse in the country. Issuing a statement, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said he is following the developments in Sri Lanka very closely. He added that it is important that the root causes of the conflict and protesters' grievances are addressed. Chief of Defence Staff General Shavendra Silva requested the public to cooperate in maintaining the law and order in the country. Speaking during a special press briefing on Wednesday, accompanied by the police chief and the commanders of the Triforce, the Chief of Defence Staff said that the armed forces and the Sri Lanka police have acted according to the existing constitution. Accordingly, the Triforce's commanders and the Inspector General of Police requested the Speaker to convene a meeting of all party leaders to explain the political measures to be taken in the period until the appointment of the next president and the decisions to be taken politically, he said. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation giving you the news.
Scan the Lanka QR code and make your payments with People's Pay mobile payment app from People's Bank.
It was decided at a special meeting held with the participation of the members of Committee on Parliamentary Business and the political party leaders on Wednesday that Acting President Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe should vacate his position at the earliest possible to defuse the prevailing crisis situation. In a press release on the decisions taken at the said meeting, the Office of the Speaker of Parliament said the political party leaders had discussed the present situation of the country at length. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who is currently and plans to fly out to Singapore, had previously informed Speaker Mahinda Yapa Abewardena that he would send his resignation before midnight yesterday. Earlier today, foreign media reported that President Rajapaksa failed to board a Singapore-bound flight from the Maldives due to security reasons. Reportedly, he is now in talks to secure a private jet to Singapore. He is expected to submit his resignation after arriving in Singapore. The Litro Gas Company says that it will distribute gas to Colombo and outskirts today as well. Chairperson Mudita Piri said that 50,000 gas cylinders will be distributed today to Colombo district and the same amount to areas outside of Colombo. He further mentioned that the assistance of the police has been requested in order to oversee the distribution process. The chairperson also added that Litro Gas Company will send gas cylinders to their sales representatives. A hotline has been introduced to obtain information and lodge complaints related to trains. General Manager of Railways Dhammika Jayasundara said the 1971 hotline will accordingly be open 24 hours from 7 a.m. today. The hotline will be accessible in Sinhala, Tamil and English. The General Manager said train schedules, railway fares, railway security services and rail crossroad concerns can be reported via the hotline. That's local news for the moment.
Nobody looks for hotels like this. So why do you still pay with cash when you have People's Pay mobile app from People's Bank? Scan the Lanka QR code and make your payments with People's Pay mobile payment app from People's Bank.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
The chief prelates of the three Buddhist chapters today urge all party leaders to convene parliament and establish structured, orderly governance. Issuing a joint statement, the clergy also urged protesters to avoid damaging public property and to engage in peaceful protests while respecting the rule of law. The Buddhist leaders said that people engaged in protest should act responsibly with intelligence. The chief prelate said that all leaders of political parties should focus on the expectations of the people while working within a democratic structure and convene the parliament to build well-ordered governance in a way that does not harm the image of the country internationally.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
And on Watchlight, considering the recent developments in relation to virtual currency usage in the international and domestic markets, as well as the inquiries related to virtual currency, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka has warned the public on the risks of using virtual currencies. Virtual currencies are largely unregulated digital representations of value that are issued by private entities and can be electronically traded. The public is therefore warned of the possible exposure to significant financial, operational, legal and security-related risks, as well as customer protection concerns posed to the users by investments in VCs. The public is also warned not to fall prey to various types of VC schemes offered through the internet, as well as other forms of media. That's on Watchlight. Moving on to world news headlines. Ukrainian grain exports may be a step closer to being restored. Rishi Sunak wins first round of Tory leadership vote in UK. Fukushima bosses ordered to pay $97 billion in damages. World news in detail. Officials from Russia, Ukraine, Turkey and the United Nations discussed on Wednesday resumption of grain exports from ports in southern Ukraine that have been blockaded by Russia. After the talks, Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar said in a statement that participants have agreed on establishing a coordination center in Istanbul that will control shipments in the Black Sea. Russia's defense ministry said in a statement that it had proposed a package of proposals for a practical and quick solution to unblock exports of Ukrainian grain. The talks came as food prices, including those of wheat, have skyrocketed across the globe, intensifying concerns over a food crisis. Former Chancellor Rishi Sunak has won the first round of voting by MPs to choose the next Conservative leader and Prime Minister of UK. He got 88 votes, with Trade Minister Penny Mordaunt in second place on 67 and Foreign Secretary Liz Truss third on 50. Chancellor Nadeem Zahawi and former Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt were eliminated from the race. Those still in the contest face another round of voting on Thursday. The result will be announced on the 5th of September. Finally, on world news, former bosses of the operator of the Fukushima nuclear power plant have been ordered to pay $97 billion for failing to prevent a disaster. The bosses from the Tokyo Electric Power Company, or TEPCO, were sued by shareholders over the 2011 meltdown, which was triggered by a tsunami. The court judged that the executives could have prevented the accident if they had exercised due care. TEPCO apologized but declined to comment on the court case. That's on world news. Moving on to development news. The Sri Lanka Foreign Employment Bureau says 27,937 individuals have left for employment overseas in the month of June this year. The Bureau said 18,083 among the group sought employment opportunities by themselves, while 9,854 individuals obtained employment through licensed foreign employment agencies. The Bureau noted that between January and the first week of July 2022, 156,179 individuals have left for employment overseas. Of the group, 100,767 persons left for jobs through their own means, while 55,411 left the island through licensed foreign employment agencies. 39,216 individuals left for employment in Kuwait, 36,022 to Qatar, 26,098 to Saudi Arabia, 3,219 to South Korea, and 2,576 to Japan. That's on development news, and we move on to sports news now.
Sports news is brought to you by
Sampat Bank. We present your future.
And on sports news, Bangladesh won the ODI series against West Indies, taking the second match with more than 29 overs to spare, bouncing back from losing the Test and T20 international series. They made West Indies bat first and bowled out the home side for 108 in 35 overs. Bangladesh took less than 21 overs to reach the target for the loss of 1 wicket. West Indies couldn't handle spin again as Nasum Ahmed took his first ODI wickets to start the West Indies collapse, and Mehdi Hassan Miraz finished the rout with 4 for 29. That's on sports news.
Cash through NSP globally and win wonderful gifts locally. From October 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. Remit a minimum of $100 or an equivalent amount in any foreign currency 3 times through NSB U Trust.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
The emergency appeal in support of Divi Savia Phase 2 was launched by LOLC earlier this month at Purana Raja Mahavihara, Ratmalana. This is to further discover and assist millions of people across the country who are already below the poverty line and are facing major disruption by the loss of livelihoods, food shortage, and the amplifying cost of essential items. This immediate critical relief is estimated to distribute a total number of 125,000 packages valued at 500 million rupees.
Business News, sponsored by
Cash through NSP globally and win wonderful gifts locally. Will you be the lucky winner of the NSP Golden Jubilee? 50 gold sovereigns for the top prize winner of the NSP Golden Jubilee. Scooters for the 10 second prize winners. iPhones for the 10 third prize winners. Mountain bikes for the 29 fourth prize winners. From October 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. Remit a minimum of $100 or an equivalent amount in any foreign currency 3 times through NSB U Trust.
Economic news, courtesy of...
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
And on economic news, Sri Lanka's producer prices rose by an exponential 75.9% in the 12 months to May 2022, rising the most from the 52.4% hit in April. This signals the possibility of over 70% consumer price inflation, which the central bank warned would come in the next few months. Producer inflation has been hitting fresh highs since the early part of this year amid the rising global energy prices and floating of the currency, which resulted in the rupee losing about 80% of its value against the dollar since March. That's on economic news.
LOLC Finance is taking the power of innovation to the next level, winning 5 golds at the Technovation Awards 2022, leading the digital revolution with cutting-edge interbanking digital payments. LOLC Finance claims the overall gold award whilst also claiming an extraordinary victory in digital banking. LOLC Finance will continue to innovate with the next generation digitalization of financial services, delivering a superior customer experience.
And on the weather update, the Meteorological Department forecast several spells of showers to occur in the Sabaragamo province and in the Nuwara and Kandy districts. A few showers will occur in the western and northwestern provinces and in the Galle and Mathura districts. Strong winds, about 50 kilometers per hour, can be expected at times in the western slopes of the Central Hills and in northern, north central and northwestern provinces and in Trincomalee and Hambantota districts. Before we conclude this bulletin of news, back to the headlines. Curfew imposed at 12 noon in the Colombo Administrative District. The Gulf-based protesters decide to hand over occupied government buildings. The UN Secretary-General appeals all party leaders to compromise to end political impasse. The chief prelates of the 3 Buddhist chapters urge all party leaders to convene parliament and establish structured, orderly governance. The Chief of Defence Staff urges public to help maintain law and order. The party leaders call for Prime Minister's immediate resignation. Literal gas distribution in Colombo and outskirts to commence today. A hotline to lodge complaints related to trains. International news, Ukrainian grain exports may be a step closer to being restored. Sports, cricket, Mehdi and Nasum trample West Indies as Bangladesh seals series. With that, we conclude this bulletin of news. You're listening to Radio Sri Lanka.